Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the February meeting of the Riverfront Design Committee. The first item on our agenda is roll call, please.
Paul Dudman.
Present.
Anthony Black.
Here.
Kenny Dennis. Brian Doherty.
Here.
Don Joyce.
Here.
Don Kasperite.
Here.
Richie Splitt.
Here.
David Yost. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Next item of business is the approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which was held on January the 2nd of this year. The minutes were in your packet. Does anyone have any comments, questions, changes? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion for approval. Move approval. Moved by Mr. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Kasperite. All those in favour?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3, cases withdrawn. There are none. Item 4, continuance requests. There are none. Item 5, consent docket. There are no items. Item 6A, cases for individual consideration. Case number SRCA-14-00002 at 800 Southeast 6th Street. Anyone have any comment? Would you like to introduce the item, please?
This is the application for the whitewater facility we built on the within the Regatta District. It includes demolition of the existing sites and the construction of the 16,000 plus square foot building, plus the raft storage concession boathouse, the kayak storage building, and the pump station and bridges, parking lots, water features, sidewalks, and other site amenities, as well as lighting, landscaping, signage, and screening and fencing. Our issues are not with materials itself, but just the fact that our ordinance does not specifically address this type of material. We ask that you consider whether or not you consider it as equitable as the other materials that are listed in the ordinance. And the parking lot is not within the area that was previously granted a variance. So we ask that that be continued so that it can be brought back next month so that we have the landscaping requirements that are required for a standalone parking lot. So our recommendation is that if the committee determines that the proposed materials are guaranteed and specified to be equivalent in appearance and durability to the materials indicated in the design guidelines and development regulations, that you approve all case items with the exception of case item 3D, which is the parking lot, and that you continue case item 3B in order for the applicant to provide us with the required landscaping.
Okay, thank you very much. Is the applicant present? Good morning. Would you please state your name?
Yes, good morning. My name is Jeffrey Gustin with S2O Design and Engineering, and I have our partners with us, Elliott and Associates, Rand Elliott, and Mike Mays. I'm not sure what protocol is. We brought a small presentation on the project itself just to kind of give you an overview. If you don't want to do that and just want to talk about the issues that were brought up, we can do that as well.
Yeah, let's go through the program. So not everyone's seen it already.
It's pretty short. Excuse me. If I can get this to work. It disappears every time I go there. Oh, okay. I don't mind walking back and forth. There's only like 12 slides.
It's fine. I can give you some when you want it.
Okay. We can go to the next one. I can do it, don't worry about it. So this is, excuse me. We'll start with an overall rendering of the site. This is looking from 6th Street to the east. So you'll see the main entry to the facility is along Phillips and 6th Street. The project is comprised of 3 buildings, essentially the main building, which would be your one down here in the far right-hand corner, which is essentially our entry building, and Rand will talk about the architecture and the space planning and elements, material elements. Right behind the main building along the river, you'll see a triangular-shaped roof. That's our rafting building. It's essentially a storage building for the rafts, the soft boats. And then as you work your way down to the east, almost right before the bridge, you'll see a small building in the foreground or in the background that is the kayak building, which is essentially the hard side of our business. And then in between that is our whitewater course. So if you could go to the next one, please. So we're just looking at the overall site plan at this point. Again, down along the river, the first building in the continuation of the existing boathouses is the main building, about 16,000 square feet, as Ms. Montgomery mentioned. The whitewater course, essentially starting outside of the main building, the way the whitewater course works is essentially there's 2 ponds. At the entry level or the main building, that is considered our lower pool. So that's the long, wider channel that you're seeing at the bottom of the page adjacent to the river. Okay. So as you work along the lower pool, there's a pump station. It's typical of like a stormwater management system where you're moving water vertically 20 feet, so you're taking it from the lower pond, taking it vertically, dumping it into an upper pond. The upper pond will be at the east side of the site, and adjacent to that being the kayak building. So once you move the water up, then gravity essentially takes over, and it moves the water down one of 2 channels. The inner channel is close to the lower pool, is the competition channel. It's 1,200 linear feet from start to finish at the turn. This is essentially designed to accommodate Olympic training and go along with the existing flatwater components along the river. The other channel, which is adjacent to or parallel to 5th Street, is what we're calling the rafting channel or the introductory channel. Both essentially have, both channels have configurable obstacles in it, so essentially, again, to dumb down the mechanics of the process, you move water up, gravity takes over, you put stuff in its way, and that creates the whitewater. And it recirculates. Alongside the pump station down along the river, there's a conveyor system, so the entire craft, be it a kayak or a 8-person raft, navigates onto the conveyor. It takes you up 20 feet, dumps you into the top pool, and you basically recirculate, so you don't have to actually get off the ride until you're done. So that's kind of the overall mechanics of the project. If you could go one more. The next slide is zooming in on the main building and the entry to the facility. So again, our main entry building has a few functions to it. It's ticketing and retail, restaurant, exterior as well as interior restaurant, various formats. We have a back of house mechanical space and then essentially office space. The volume of the space, if you could go one more slide, please. Actually, let's go back one. I'll get to that in a second. But the building itself is designed to be 2 stories. It's a 16,000 square foot footprint. The second story is the structure is capable of accepting about another 12,000 square feet on the second floor in a future phase. Well, we've talked to MAPS as well as the Boathouse Foundation, and the thoughts are that that could be a conference facility, a more sizable exterior dining area so that you're not just doing corporate events, but in when you're doing additional spectating for any type of local events you might have at the facility. Let's move forward, please. This rendering here is looking back to the west, so you're going to see the boats there in the lower pool. Right behind that is the orientation slash storage pavilion for the rafts. It's an open air structure. You'll see the overhang sweeping out on both sides. One of the things we're very concerned with this project is getting ample shade. We have a lot of people that will show up here. There's a lot of active opportunities out here, but there's a lot of passive opportunities, a lot of waiting. So we want to make sure we have ample overhangs for the building and for the patrons. Underneath some of these overhangs, there's what we call an orientation pavilion. So as part of the process when you're coming out here to raft. You have to sign a waiver, go through a process of learning how to actually, first response type stuff. You fall out of craft, what to do. So there's a video instruction element to it. So that's where people would actually queue up and do that before they get into the raft. And in the background to the right, you'll see the main building.
May I ask you about that main building?
Yes.
Is this showing that second phase, second story?
It's, excuse me, it's the first, as part of the MASH program, there's one phase, which is we're building the building, but it's a 2-story volume. So as part of that process, the second story will not be used. It's called a mechanical space, so to speak. It's got a metal deck, no slab on it. There's no access to it. There actually is no stairs or elevator to the second floor as part of our design. We have an elevator pit. It's not no mechanical equipment in it. We have no stairs. We have the area to do that when we do a future phase. If you could go another slide, please.
So essentially, that second phase is all an interior, basically remodel.
That's correct. No, we're building the shell in phase 1. This here is just an overall planting plan for the project. Various different vegetation, a lot of shade trees again in here. You'll see, excuse me, on the plan, there's an inner island between the two channels that we look to have small events out here. When you're having the competition channel run, there tends to be people that aggregate. There's probably 3-to-1 ratio from a user perspective to a spectator perspective. So we have ample area out here on the island for, I think we were saying about 5,000 to 6,000 people for small events. There's a bridge that shows up on the, it's a little faint here, but it shows up on the west side of the project. And we have a future bridge on the east side that's basically the same bridge, same design, different spans. If you could go one more, please. And go another one, please. This is a rendering looking back to the main building. Again, you're seeing the volume of the 2-story space on the main building, and then this is a picture of the bridge going out into the inner islands. One more. And then we're into the architecture and the buildings. I'm going to ask Rance to step forward a little bit and just kind of talk a little bit more about the space planning behind it and then the architecture.
Thank you and good morning. We're really excited to share the continued development of what's going on at the river on behalf of myself and Mike Mays, who's the project architect, to continue to talk about this. A couple of things that have been very important, of course, is that we've been 9 years in the process of developing the boathouse district, and the architectural concept about the boathouses being near the edge of the river, that they be consistent architecturally has been a very important part of the process. And nothing has changed in terms of our continued approach for that, for the whitewater. And we've had such a great working relationship with Scott Shipley and with Jeffrey and the entire team to ensure this conceptual vocabulary and its continuation. What you're seeing here on the plan is Jeffrey's description about what's going on. If you can imagine, the river is kind of down at the tip, which is the right-hand side. The entrance is over on the upper left, and you come into kind of a main lobby, and this linear space that you see that runs through the building is our way of being able to do a combination of things. It's both the retail space and the key connecting link, if you will, through the building. People have to come through the building, they get ticketed, they go through, and they end up over here at the orientation building, which Jeffrey mentioned a little bit earlier, and so you literally pass through this. It's a little bit akin to the museum planning business. If you have been to the Science Museum or the Oklahoma City Museum, you always want to pass by or go through the retail store, and that's a very important part of the economic benefits of it. And so that's really what's going on here. Along the east side, this long linear space is really the primary indoor food service area. This building will accommodate large rental facilities and weddings, all kinds of activities that go on here that will be very much a part of the process. On the upper part, which is really kind of the northeast, we have an outdoor space that's actually covered. And you saw in the earlier drawings, can you go back a couple of images? Well, that one was good. That was fine. Go back one more forward. No, Okay. The kind of that opening there on the end, the left side of the building, is actually the covered outdoor eating and service space that is right adjacent to the food service area part of the building. The entrance is the kind of triangular shaped area to the right. You go in that position, and then the whole idea here for the Oklahoma City Whitewater facility is that we actually went to Charlotte, and I think we've shared that with you before, to experience what they were doing. One of the things that we saw in Charlotte is that they had not done as good a job as we needed to do in Oklahoma City about providing shade. It's very hot here. You need some protection in some way, and so we've increased the amount of landscaping dramatically, and the idea is that you can kind of move from one shady spot to another shady spot, but still enjoy being outdoors, and so that's been a very important part of the process. And this is a great example. This space is on in essence, the east side, and what that does, obviously, is it protects you from the really hot sun from noon on until the evenings in the summertime. And so we've purposely placed and located those facilities accordingly. Next slide. So what you have here, just very quickly, is the retail corridor. This large area just below that is significant restroom areas for the general public to be able to use. The dining room is on the right. As you saw, the round space at kind of the knuckle of it is a bar area for whatever use you might want to imagine. The rest of it primarily is offices. We do have a grab-and-go restaurant section. One of the things that we have determined as we've studied the Whitewater facilities elsewhere is that so often families are there, and you're not necessarily going to get your 6-year-old or 8-year-old to sit down and have something to eat, so you kind of grab it. You can go out and have your own picnic, if you will, out on the grounds or wherever the case might be, and so we have a grab-and-go area so that you can actually buy a sandwich or something and take off. And then the rest of it is office space to be able to support this, and then to the left-hand side is a significant receiving dock and mechanical enclosure area. You want to go on to the next one? Just some elevations. On the bottom drawing, the left-hand side is the entrance part, glass enclosure, so it's very clear what you're doing. On the right-hand side is the delivery dock area. You can kind of see it in section there. Might go on to the next slide. The architectural part of it is a white metal panel, corrugated metal panel that I'll show you about here in just a moment, but we've used banded glass versus large panes of glass like the other boathouses, but the height of it, which is roughly 33 feet, is consistent with the other boathouses, and so all of them will fit or compare in terms of scale. We did that originally on purpose. If you were to go in the Devon Boathouse today, you'd see that it's a 2-story space, and this is a very similar kind of thing to that. On the upper drawing, this is the space we were looking at earlier in the 3D. That's the covered area where you can actually sit in the shade and yet have access to seeing all the things that are going on the site. Next. Jeffrey mentioned the 3 primary buildings. This is really the I-35, I-40 position or kind of our high point, and it was intentional that we build a building that had an iconic quality and really brought attention to the Whitewater facility to try to get people off of the highway. This ends up being the kayak storage building. You're actually going to be able to do some ticketing here, but it's primarily for the storage of that. It will be a similar material to the other things, and I'm going to pass some images around so that you can see that as well. And I think the next slide or two also represents the view of this particular structure. Maybe that's in here. You have the next one. Okay. This just shows a plan. It's a small building, and primarily you can see that there's a small office, a toilet there, primarily kayak storage, access, and so forth, and you can purchase tickets there. Let's see what the next one is. This is the elevations of the storage facility. Jeffrey showed you the kind of long, thin, covered roof area, that top drawing. This is the orientation space. You come out of the building after you have been ticketed. You come out and you actually sit in the shade, and instructors will go through and give you a tutorial on how you how you deal with going through the raft and through the rapids and that sort of thing. And so there's a training program that goes with this before you actually engage in the physical activity. Is that the last drawing? These are drawings of the kayak storage building. You can kind of see the architectural qualities of it and the vertical height. Next. Okay. Why don't, at this particular moment, let me pass these out. What we have here are just a couple of additional drawings that we thought would be real helpful. We have had conversations with Scotty. We're proposing a material that is different than the solid white panels of the other buildings in the in the Boathouse District, and there's a very specific reason why. This is a product made in America, which we're really happy about. It's made in Nebraska by a company called Ranke, and Ranke specializes in a tornado-resistant, wind-resistant, hail-resistant, corrugated aluminum shingle. And the thing that we particularly liked about this and felt like it was absolutely appropriate, you want to go back a slide, look at a building, maybe a colored slide, was that we've done a significant amount of research. Yeah, that would be a good one. Significant amount of research on products and that sort of thing. The key thing was that we wanted there to be certain consistencies, of course, which we've planned and hoped for since the very beginning of the Boathouse District 9 years ago. But what's also important is that we felt like that there was a need to allow this building to kind of speak to its purpose. And because the whitewater is really all about ripples and water and the movement of it, we felt like that there was an opportunity to introduce a material that kind of echoed that point of view. And if you look at the shingle material, you see that it has corrugations and it feels like rippling water is really what it does. And our goal is that it will be both the roofing areas and the siding areas of it. And part of the thing that was so attractive to us about this was that we could get exactly the same color that we wanted to match the other boathouses, which was very important. It satisfied this notion of having an architectural quality that felt like rippling water, which we thought was important, and then its resistance to hail, damage, and that kind of thing. And that was a very important piece of the puzzle in terms of our choices for that. And so what you're seeing are actually photographs. Several of those photographs are actually the product in situ, built and placed on a wall. And this is actually at my office at 5th and Harrison in a mock-up if you'd like to come by and see it. We are so pleased with it. It's a fabulous product. It has a little bit of sheen to it, as you can see in the images, and it really is doing what we think will be a great job for this particular project. Let's see. I think the other thing I would say to you in terms of our goals with this, and I think I've shared this before, that one of the interesting things about the Boathouse District is that these buildings are exposed 360 degrees. There's no back. And so we've been very careful about where gas lines come in and where mechanical equipment is. And one of the moments of pride for us is if you were to do an aerial view of the Chesapeake Boathouse, you would see that there are absolutely no penetrations in the roof. And that for us is a reason for cheering, because it's not an easy thing to accomplish, and the same thing is applicable here. We have virtually no penetrations in the roof, and we're really happy about that. Jeffrey mentioned the shade and the sizes of the buildings, and whether it's Jeffrey or Mike or I, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have about this, and we're certainly happy for you to come by our office maybe on a better day, to take a look at these. But they look really good with white snow around them, so there is some benefit to that.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had what's the attachment that we're seeing here in these pictures?
What's so great, John, is that this product actually comes shipped with its own nails, which we thought this is a company that's really done their homework, and they have developed a special nail, a patented nail that goes with this, and it attaches, and it's exposed. And it's a special shank nail that allows it to be connected to the building in such a way that it reduces the amount of wind, or increases the amount of wind resistance, I should say.
You say it was hail resistant?
Yes, it is, Paul. What they have done is that they've done a whole series of tests with this, and it was developed specifically to be able to deal with that particular weather condition. And the way they did it, if you look at the images, it's corrugated. And most shingles are not, they're not corrugated, they're flat. And by making it corrugated, it creates strength in its surface area. And their literature describes the fact that it's made to withstand 1-inch hail with no impact whatsoever. And that's significant. And, it's rare that we have anything bigger than that. And if it does, you don't want to be outside looking around anyway. So we felt like it was a perfect solution.
Any other comments?
I have had the chance to look at this several times because I've been on the MAPS 3 Citizens Oversight and then the River Trust and all. Up until yesterday, I did not have a chance to review the planting plan. And I did give Rand a courtesy call that there were a number of plant material that, well, I don't think there's any way in the world will make it here in Oklahoma, although the design concept is right. But, like Austrian pine, you can't grow Austrian pine. Now we'll plant it and it will live for 2 years, but pine blight, we'll take it out, and that's 100% of the time. And there's a number of those, the lindens and some of that. So I have just suggested that, there's a chance it would all get caught in the bidding process and people say, I'm not going to plant them and all, but I think the other thing would be if we could get, with county extension or something, and just go over the list. There's a lot of stuff that will have no problem, but there's a number of things here that the Caddo maple there's probably little of any chance of any of them making it, even though they do great in Caddo County. And so I think we just need to sit there and just tweak it. I think we can find similar plants, similar condition, but I think all of us want it to be a win-win deal.
We accept Brian's recommendations. We have tremendous respect for his professional judgment. And after we had that conversation, it's just clear that we'll revisit that and make sure that it's appropriate. We all want it to be successful long-term. We don't want it to be something that causes maintenance issues for Mike Knopp or the city or anybody. And my apologies for us not having it right the first time in this particular area, but we will go back and correct that and get it taken care of. So we're certainly listening, and we're happy to do that.
Thank you.
I'd like to go back to the shingle just for
Sure.
a second. I like the idea of introducing within the context of the other buildings a little bit of a different texture, and I
Yes.
think the fact that the texture is going to be a better performance, I think is excellent. I had a question about one of the things that's going to bridge the gap and make it really successful is the continuity of those horizontal lines that
Yes.
you see
Yes.
in your construction document.
Yes.
But I'm not quite seeing it in the photographs. I was curious, is that in your mock-up?
I think, Tony, it's right. If you see these, what we've done is it is basically a piece of brake metal that we've put in there that creates a batten effect, if you will. And again, you picked up exactly what our intent was to create that consistency that we have from building to building. And so we basically, you do a little L-shaped batten with it, and you lay right into it like it's a counter-flashing kind of thing. And we think it will be very consistent and appropriate and fit architecturally with the other buildings.
I think the person who comes to the site will see all the buildings and see the shadow lines, and they'll appreciate the fact that they're all very much harmonious. I like this material. I was curious what your thoughts were on the deflection in the material when the fastener is being created. Is that something that you feel like really lends itself to fluid, organic, water, it's not as synthetic, or is that something you think is...
We love the idea that it appears to have the spirit of water in it because it is corrugated. The thing that we thought was particularly interesting about the attachment method was that it requires someone to do a good job, but it also requires them to be thoughtful about every nail that they put into the surface. As an architect, you can appreciate the fact that encouraging them to be thoughtful is a good thing. We're likely to make sure that whoever is chosen for this will be aware of that. The Ranky people have been over the top helpful to us to do whatever we needed to do. There could be a little rubber mechanism that they use to lay down as a protection mechanism before the nail goes in. But we've done an 8x12 section that's at our office in an effort, so we've had a first pass at it, and it really goes together very nicely, and we've been over there trying to pull it out of pull the nails out of the backing and so forth and so on. It's really performing really well. So we think that it's just a matter of good installation, proper installation, following correct guidelines.
I know that you know that this is going to be competitively bid, and the trades that end up successful may or may not have worked with aluminum as a product. And you know, the mock-up is great and can be there to hold someone accountable for the performance. It's just one of those things whenever you show up on the job site and half of the building has been done and you don't like the way it looks.
We think and believe that Ranky would be happy to send a representative here or something. In the end, for those shingles that someone got a little aggressive with, we're likely to ask them to be removed and replaced. You'll also notice that one of the things that we did is that it's not laid in a 50-50 version. It's not overlaying half, it's overlaying a third. And we think that it gives a really nice texture and a certain shadowing effect of it. So the nuances of this are some things that we've really been thinking about, and as you can all imagine, having spent 9 years of our life down here, we're really particular about all the things that go on, and everybody that we've talked to, we had a pre-meeting yesterday on the Whitewater, a pre-bid meeting on the Whitewater, and there was a lot of emphasis on the importance of the quality of what gets done and that sort of thing, fully understanding that it is a publicly bid project. This is an important project for the city of Oklahoma City, and we all plan to do everything we can to make it as good as possible.
I think from our standpoint, it's important that we somehow note that this is not a metal shingle. This is really a high-performance aluminum system. In no way, shape, or form does somebody come back and say, we've got a metal shingle that we're proposing. I think it meets the guidelines because precedent has been set. It's been used in the past. This is not that kind of I'd love to see it defined as some other name so that no one else comes back and says that we're trying to follow suit.
If you'd like for us to provide additional information, we're happy to do that.
Yeah, that's just for us in the future.
Terrific.
As we rotate off the board, I realize others will come in and be looking to the past.
And I would encourage you, if you'd like to come by, you don't have to call or anything like that. You're welcome to come by. There are 5 samples that we're doing for various and sundry projects, and this particular product is up, and you're welcome to come by and take a look at it. And if you want, you can call, and Mike or I are happy to talk to you about it or whatever.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Anyone care to make a motion?
I move for approval as noted by staff with the comments on the panels and the exception on item 3B.
Moved by Mr. Blatt.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Casper. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Another wonderful project.
Thank you very much, John.
Appreciate your time. The next item on the agenda is other business. There is none. Item 8, communications. 8A, administrative approval report. There were 2 items that were approved. Case number SRCA-130034 at 1424 South Meridian Avenue. And the next one is SRCA-140001 at 215 Southwest 13th Street. Does anyone have any questions or comments of staff on those? If not, is there any comments from the planning department?
None?
Comments from the committee? If not, our next meeting is Thursday, March the 6th. Do we have things on the on the agenda? Okay. Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Mr. Blatt, seconded by Mr. Smith. Thank you. Good meeting. Interesting.
was the date? I'm sorry, I missed it.
The next meeting will be the first Thursday of January,
March 6th.
March 6th.
What time?
9 o'clock. So we'll need to have that